Great to be here, and thanks for having me. Yes, they were some great old days. We used to have our little basement studio and get up to some great fun with gaming, so it's a wonderful theme. I'm here to talk to you about mastering customer centricity. So first of all, a little bit about me, especially you guys in Sydney may not see so much of me given I'm based down in Melbourne, but I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Adore's first Chief Experience Officer, which is pretty cool. I also do a bit of consulting on the side. I do some career coaching and advisory work. I'm also studying to do my executive MBA through Oxford, so I've got 1 week to go at the end of this month, and then I'm finally finished after 2 years, which is pretty exciting and a lot of frequent flyer points. Thank you. And also I'm a profitability evangelist, so I ran a course last year, and I'll do another one next year, really about how to optimizing for profitability. But if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll put the slide up again at the end. But a little bit more about me. So I've been in digital for about 22 years. I got into retail in 2009, working for Quicksilver, worked for a few brands you've probably heard of before. Before Adore, I was general manager of Omni Experience at Myer, and also doing some advisory work for Insider, who I'm here to talk to on behalf of today. So I'm really honoured to be working alongside with the Insider team. They are a powerful platform that simplifies marketing functions by consolidating tech, reducing costs and improving efficiencies. Their platform enables clients to connect data across channels, predict future behaviour with AI and automate personalised journeys. So I encourage you to go out and have a chat to the guys at the booth and learn a bit more about them. But more for me. So customer centricity, we always talk about this, but what does it actually mean in reality? How many of you actually refer to your businesses or to your businesses internally say that you are customer-centric? So does your business look more like this? Amazon have this concept where they have a red chair, and they have a red chair in every single office. So if you're having a meeting, then we're always talking about the customer in the room. The chair is always empty, you're not allowed to sit on it, but it's how they bring the customer into every conversation. Or is your business a little bit more like this? I've seen both. I think the most important thing here is, I recognise that everybody is at different levels, different circles of concern, control, and influence within your business. You don't have to be a CXO like me to be able to bring a customer-centric culture into the business. You can start from where you are, implement some small changes, and that's what I'm going to be here to talk to you about today, is a few things that even when I walk into a business and they say they're customer-centric, but they're not really walking the walk, this is a few things that I do to start getting that momentum going. Because progress over perfection, as anyone who's worked with me, is one of my key taglines. So first of all, what really is customer centricity? I think the key thing for me here is about being able to bring your understanding of customers, how you define those experiences, and then all of those feedback drivers to bring continuous improvement back in, and then being able to consolidate that into how you really bring customer centricity to life. But at the end of the day, we talk about putting the customer at the heart of everything you do, about how you are able to connect experiences across all channels so that customers can travel seamlessly across all of those in whichever journey they want to put together, and be able to have a whole brand experience. But the key thing for me is that we also talk about omni-channel retailing, and for me, customer centricity is at the heart of that. It is also a key tenet of how we deliver on omni-channel retailing. The other key thing that I want to talk about briefly is, customer centricity is not just one of those feel-good metrics or something that we just talk about because we think it's the right thing to do. It is actually really good for your business. So it'll help drive revenue, and it'll also help with your brand reputation, as well as doing great things for your customers. So there's a good business case to think about there as well. But how can you bring customer centricity to life within your role? Some key principles that I want you to think about, and also ones that I constantly have to tell stakeholders in my business, especially if I'm sitting there and they're, talking about the customer. I'm like, okay, well, where's your data? Where's the proof points behind that? So the first thing I'm really big on is you are not your customer. Doesn't matter what your experience is, you are a sample of one. Show me the data. The next thing is you want to make sure you're understanding the problem before you're defining the solution. So often I find stakeholders, the first ones they do is jump to, I want to do this. I'm like, why? What's your insight? What is the thing that led you to that thought pattern where you got here? Take me back to the start and let's talk about what the problem is, and then we can ideate a number of different solutions and work out which is the best one. The other key thing is what a customer says they will do and what they actually do can be completely different, and that's why we test a number of different things along a product development lifecycle and also test things in different ways. Never wait until you go live to find out if it works. If that's the only time that you're testing, you're probably going to get in some bit of surprises down the track, and I'll show you something at the end of the slide deck around what happened to me at Jetstar back in the day. But also let the customer do the talking. Don't stop listening. One of the key things I've found is being able to remove egos from the room, and even whether or not somebody wants to agree with me as a person, is to always put that customer data front and foremost, but also realise that that customer data was right at a single point in time. You must continue to listen and adjust those assumptions as you go. So the key 4 things that I want to talk to you about today and the ways that I start to build a customer-centric culture is about mapping your customer journeys in order to be able to understand the problems and priorities. How do you incorporate some customer feedback into your processes and behaviours, measuring change in success, and then engaging and working with the managers and leaders in your business. So, customer journeys. If you guys are not across the double diamond method, this is something that I use a lot with people, again, to try and get them out of that mindset of jumping straight to solution mode and back into problem mode. I like to talk to them about how we go broad and then refine back and then go out again in order to start with those solution pieces. So it's a really good method, and even when you're engaging internal stakeholders, getting them to come back and articulate what the problem is. So the key thing for me, understanding that problem starts with your data. And one of the things that I found really impactful was actually getting people to rethink what is data. And so all data is customer data. It could be quantitative. So, we're all used to our analytics and our A/B split testing. But there's so much qualitative data that we get access to in our business. So usability testings, session recordings, your net promoter score verbatims, what we see on social, ratings and reviews, your app store reviews, complaints, compliments, things that come in through your customer service team. How do you try and harness all of that unstructured data and bring that into a way that you can actually start to use it? So you could go and do something like this. This is something that my team and I worked on many years ago. It's kind of dulled out a little bit because there's slightly sensitive information there, but it is pretty old these days, which is great. But, this kind of real traditional customer journey map that your teams might use for really detailed analysis takes a long time. And also, you can't put this in front of a board. You can't put this in front of a CEO. They're going to get completely overwhelmed and be like, where do I start? So one of the things that I did, created something that was simple and practical, and it's kind of like my high-level customer journey on a page. So what I like to think about is, what is your key steps of your customer journey? And so this is an example from a retailer, for example: discover, buy, fulfill, and retain. And you can switch this up for whatever you need, but we went through all of those unstructured pieces of data and we looked for what were these key insights, what were the key pain points that came out that we could turn into a data point or really sound bites. So one of the great things with this document, I gave this to my boss. He then started to memorize these sound bites, and anytime he needed to advocate for us in any meetings, these are the things that he would quote. These are the numbers, he used them, they were really powerful, and then the team started to do the same things as well. When you're all starting to sing from the same hymn book, the key stakeholders, the people that need to know this so that you can build your business cases for what you need to do next, these became repetitive, they came from multiple people, it really added up into that memory of people in the business and why things were important. One of the key things I would do as well with this is that the key pain points that were really powerful, I made them bold. So again, if somebody's looking at this at a glance and how they're looking through a deck, they were able to see their eyes drawn to the most important pieces, and then they usually landed down to the opportunities at the bottom, and then that opportunities is what became my product roadmap. So a really useful artifact to be able to build within your businesses. So now I want to talk to you about incorporating that customer feedback into your processes and ways of working. So you've got an artifact like your customer journey map that I just showed you, but you want to start creating regular feedback loops. You don't want to create something that is out of date as soon as you've built it, and then you're kind of like working off that for an entire year. Because especially as you start to unblock existing problems, new problems created or are found as customers can now move a little bit further through the journey, and now they're starting to hit new roadblocks, which before were not so much of a problem because they got stuck upstream here. So what tools can you use? So I like to look at quarterly usability testing. I would test like the same 3 journeys every single quarter, and then I would add in a couple of extra things that I wanted to test that were new features coming up. But that allows us to build a baseline around what is that main customer journey. We would do it every quarter, track customer satisfaction and customer effort scores, and then be able to see how that trended over time, make sure that what we were doing was going in the right direction. I'd also put that in my team's KPIs because it was actually something we could benchmark against for ourselves. But looking at your social media listening tools, NPS verbatims, as I mentioned, using something like Content Square for your CX analytics, real-time monitoring, so we used New Relic, word cloud tagging, customer service feedback, and even your internal communications processes. Like, how do you get escalations from your stores? How do you get escalations from anybody that's on the front line and getting that feedback back in a quantitative measure? One of the key things I said to my team at Adore recently is, I love that we speak customer, but the rest of the business doesn't. The business language is numbers. Until you can take customer metrics and put it into numbers so that everyone else can understand, they are not going to get what we're trying to achieve. So I really think that's important. Now, the key thing I want to talk about here is the usability testing. A lot of people can go, that feels like a lot of work, that's really hard. This is the most insightful statistic I've ever had in my entire career, which is basically that you can get 80% of the issues of your usability testing out from testing with just 5 people. Just 5 people. Anything above that, you are generally at the point of diminishing return. So what I would suggest is you test with 5 people, you get enough insights, you make the corrections and changes to your prototype, go back and test again, and then if you're seeing your customer effort scores as low as possible and your satisfaction scores high, great. Then move to build and test again. But otherwise, go back and do this a few times. Doesn't have to be a lot of effort, and you don't need a big team or a big agency to run this for you. So then what you do, you get your feedback loops and you regularly update this document. I would get my team to do this on a quarterly basis as part of our quarterly planning, because sometimes you want to see what are the things that are just shifting quickly versus what are the things that are just a blip because there was a promotion or we had Black Friday and of course everyone was pissed off because their orders took 3 weeks to get to them. What is short-term versus what is a long-term trend? We would keep another version of this for ourselves that we might update a bit more regularly, but only out to stakeholders once a quarter. So quick chat about measuring change and success. So how do we mitigate risk and iterate on feedback really quickly? So we're really talking here about, don't wait until you go live. I talk about show early, show often, show widely. This for me is making sure that, don't wait until it's perfect. I don't care if it's sketched on a piece of paper. Put it in front of someone, get some feedback, even if it's from your customer service team. Show often, so get regular feedback through your product development lifecycle, and show widely. Try and get in front of different types of customers, get in front of your frontline team, get in front of people who know nothing to do with web, and if you need to, show it to your mum. She used to be my greatest person for testing because she was, not that great with online. She's much better these days though. But so do your prototyping, do your wireframes, think about your customer surveys and interviews. Get out into the real world if you can, especially if you work in retail or anywhere that's got customers that are in physical spaces. When I was in the airline, we went out to the airports, we talked to customers. There's great opportunities to get real world feedback.
do your A/B split testings for launch, and then do rapid iterations to close any gaps or get it to where you think it needs to be from a performance perspective before you roll to 100%. And then I also want to talk to you a little bit about experimentation and painted door tests. So not sure if you guys have heard about this sort of concept before, but this is around not even waiting until you've built a feature and the difference between what a customer says they'll do and what they actually do. So you've gone and done a prototype, you've put it in front of customers, they've given you a bit of feedback from a focus group or something like that. You've got some insights, you're like, cool, we think customers will use it. This is the next step that allows you to validate this. We call it a radical assumption test, a RAT test. I mean, it worked before COVID. It's, needs a new name now. But basically what you do is you just put a button here and then the feature's not built, but you can actually measure off whether or not people are clicking on this button to gauge interaction and whether or not it's likely to be something that customers will actually use. So it's another way of being able to add extra data and validation to what you're trying to do before you've gone and invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in building it. Now, this can be quite controversial. I personally have, not let my team do this a couple of times, but if you can find a way to de-risk it or put it in an area or even put it behind 5% of traffic because you don't actually want to piss your customers off by offering something that doesn't really exist. So I think it's a short, sharp way of being able to measure impact. Getting out into the real world, I used to send my team into Maya. They'd go down to Burke Street, walk in there and actually give customers vouchers to be able to answer some questions, go through prototypes. Sometimes we'd even follow them around like you would with the usability testing and get them to talk out loud around what were they thinking, feeling, doing while they were in the store. The other thing we did at Jetstar, we got on the Sky Bus. You've got customers who sit there, they are, got 20, 30 minutes not doing anything. Again, get a $20 voucher for coffee at the airport while they're able to sit and talk through a prototype, which is quite cool. Last thing I want to touch on is engaging managers and leaders. This is more of a personal war story from my days there. The thing is that even when you have done all of these things, it won't always go to plan. You can still get to go live and then find out you've got a problem. So in 2017, Jetstar was a $4.5 billion business, and most of that came from digital channels. So to build confidence in this project, so I've got 4 different CEOs from 4 different business units. I work for Jetstar Group. We launched all of our largest sites on A/B split tests. But what we didn't expect, after having 2 successful launches, is that our third one in Japan would not perform better than the old site. The Japanese team has said, we're different, it's not going to work, you need to change things, but I kept trying to push back and go, no, we've got to keep on a centralised plan. This is how we mitigate our costs. We'll get to your personalisations and localisations later. So when it didn't turn out very well, I'm like, oh shit, they can't be right. How do we work through this? So my team hated me, but I created this concept called agile optimization. We basically went through this rapid iteration of being able to try and get our A/B split test to outperform the control. We did daily reporting on key metrics. We built an optimization steering committee with our key stakeholders, and we gave ourselves 6 weeks to turn it around. We did quick, rapid ideation using data around where we thought the problems were. We did a quick effort versus benefit prioritization, rapid prototyping, and each test had 4 days to make a difference. So we were like, if it got to positive after 4 days, it stayed in the experiment. If it didn't, it went to the backlog because we weren't waiting for statistical significance. So we didn't say this idea is wrong. It's just not good enough to drive a change and help us get to where we were going. And that became our rollout plans for how we managed all of our largest sites. But just wanted to show you a few of the different tests and things that we went through and how we actually got to turn that site around. So the first thing we did was look at colour and copy. So there's 3 different variations. And what we found was that orange for the flight search was the most prominent way and got more customers into the booking flow. We also had a look, the top one was our original control, where we wanted customers to be able to interact with the first button, so we had deactivated the second drop-down, but customers weren't even realising that it was an actual form that you needed to submit. We'd built it, so we thought we were so flash. It was going to auto-submit, but actually putting a button on the end made it easier so that people actually realised they had to interact with it. The next one here, this is a little bit of spot the difference, but this was whether or not the second field was actually greyed out or active. We found again when it was white and it had a to where question in it, customers again realised that they needed to be able to interact with this in order to move the search through. And the other one we did, which was really interesting, was about images. Like, were images actually there to inspire or distract? Jetstar likes to think of itself very much as, no frills. We don't put a lot of the extra details in there. But images actually had a great contribution to increasing that conversion. But the biggest difference of all the craziest things that we did not think about was actually the colour of the headers. So this was the one that really tipped us over into positive conversion. Marketing team originally said that they wanted the black headers, but it turns out in certain Asian cultures, black means death, which is the last thing you want on an airline website. So some of these things that are nuanced and cultural that you may not realise until you get to this point. So it's just a key thing to think about. So wrapping up, my key takeaways: customer centricity is everyone's role. Let the customer data do the talking for you rather than you having to put your own reputation on the line. Create simple customer journey maps to work with stakeholders. Create feedback loops to make sure your customer insights are current. Measure and monitor. Don't wait until you go live to find out if it works. And bring your managers and leaders on the journey with you. Thank you.